You ever hear people say New York will change you? Well, it changed me. By about 10 pounds. I'm not even mad, honestly. Between the dollar slices, deep dish, thin crust, Sicilian, and something called a grandma slice, which frankly slapped harder than my own grandma, I didn't stand a chance. Every borough has a different pizza style, and apparently I took it upon myself to honor each and every one with my face. But let's be real for a second, gaining weight isn't the scariest thing about New York. Nope. The city itself is terrifying, and I'm not even talking about the ghosts yet. Try crossing the street while 5 taxis, 3 cyclists, and 2 guys selling mixtapes all aim for you at once. That's a near-death experience right there. I even got a text from my 20-year-old nephew telling me to stay away from Diddy parties. I'm not sure what that is, but sure. Ghosts? Please. I fear an angry Brooklyn pigeon way more than anything paranormal at this point. Still, New York's haunted side is a whole different beast. Sure, you survived the subway rats and the screaming man in Times Square dressed like Elmo, but the city's spirits? They're on another level. Some of these ghosts have been lurking since before pizza was even invented. And that's saying something because New York basically runs on pizza. In today's video, part 4 of our haunted New York journey, we're diving even deeper into the city's spookiest spots. And trust me, after hearing some of these stories, you might be less worried about rent prices and more worried about what's hiding behind your closet door. So grab a snack, maybe not pizza this time, and get cozy. Or maybe don't get too cozy. Because once you hear about the places we're visiting today, you might not be sleeping all that comfortably tonight. All right, enough small talk. Let's waddle into the darkness together, 10 pounds heavier, and a lot more terrified. Welcome to New York's Most Haunted, Part 4. Let's get spooky. Welcome to Screamville. If you ever find yourself wandering through the East Village in New York City, minding your business and maybe sipping an overpriced latte, you might stumble upon St. Mark's Church in the Bowery. And if you suddenly hear disembodied Dutch cursing, don't worry, it's just Peter Stuyvesant, the grumpy granddaddy of the Bowery, still throwing tantrums from beyond the grave. After all, this guy ran New Amsterdam like it was his own fiefdom. So of course he wasn't about to let a little thing like death stop him from micromanaging. Built in 1799 on what used to be Stuyvesant's farm, or brewery in Dutch, St. Mark's is the second oldest church in Manhattan. It's charming, historic, and, oh yeah, allegedly crawling with ghosts. Peter Stuyvesant himself is buried there. And, according to locals, he didn't exactly go quietly into that good night. Reports say his ghost can be heard stomping around with his peg leg. Yes, you heard that right. Stuyvesant had a peg leg after losing his real one in battle. So if you hear a suspicious clomp 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 echoing through the church late at night, congratulations, you're being haunted by a colonial pirate wannabe. Stuyvesant isn't just an angry stomp ghost, though. He also loves to yell in 17th century Dutch. Because nothing says terrifying like being screamed at in a language you don't understand by a ghost who looks like he just fell off the money you spent on your history textbook. Some brave souls have even claimed to see his full apparition, dressed in period garb, glaring at everyone like they just overcooked his Thanksgiving turkey. But Peter isn't the only specter hanging around. Over the centuries, plenty of parishioners, pastors, and local eccentrics have passed through St. Mark's doors, and some of them seem to have made it their eternal Airbnb. Witnesses report strange lights in the churchyard, phantom footsteps, and shadowy figures peeking out from behind tombstones. It's basically New York's creepiest block party, and guess what? Everyone's invited. One of the more unsettling ghost stories involves a woman in white. I mean, what haunting is complete without a woman in white? She's often seen gliding through the graveyard or along the church steps. Some say she's a mourning mother. Others whisper that she's a colonial lady forever searching for her lost lover. Personally, I think she's just tired of Zillow and is looking for a decent place to haunt. And don't forget the poltergeist activity inside the church itself. Churchgoers and caretakers have described books flying off shelves, doors slamming on their own, and cold spots that could chill your bones faster than a New York winter. There's even a rumor that some of the construction workers restoring the church in the 1970s ran off screaming after encountering a spectral party they weren't exactly invited to. Imagine trying to hang drywall while Peter Stuyvesant is screaming obscenities at you. Sounds like a union grievance waiting to happen. Even non-paranormal visitors pick up on the weird vibes, Some say the energy shifts the moment you step onto the grounds. Dogs refuse to walk past the church. Pigeons avoid the place like it's a bad brunch spot. And if New York pigeons, arguably the most fearless animals on earth, are scared, you know something spooky is going on. Despite its haunted reputation, St. Mark's is still a beloved part of the East Village community. It hosts poetry readings, concerts, and theater performances. Honestly, if Peter Stuyvesant is still lurking around, he's probably furious about the spoken word nights. Nothing says eternal punishment like listening to someone dramatically read their breakup poem for the 5th time. So, if you're ever in the area, swing by St. Mark's Church. Pay your respects, enjoy the Gothic vibes, and keep your ears open for a clomp clomp in the distance. Just remember, if you hear someone yell at you in angry Dutch, it's probably just Peter reminding you to stay off his lawn even 350 years later. In the heart of the concrete jungle where dreams are made, and sometimes nightmares too, Trinity Church Cemetery stands as one of New York City's oldest, most famous, and most haunted resting places. Built in 1697, because even early New Yorkers needed a place to crash permanently, this cemetery has seen everything from the American Revolution to present-day ghost tours. Trinity Church Cemetery isn't just one cemetery, it's kind of a graveyard empire. There's the original graveyard right behind Trinity Church at Wall Street, plus another uptown by 155th Street. But we're mainly talking about the downtown OG cemetery here, where over the centuries the dead have gotten restless. Maybe it's because they're squeezed between skyscrapers and tourists who don't understand sidewalk etiquette. Some of the big names chilling in Trinity's cemetery include Alexander Hamilton, his wife Eliza, and his sister-in-law Angelica Schuyler. Given how dramatic their lives were, it's no surprise people have reported ghostly sightings around their graves. Imagine going through duels, scandals, heartbreak, and then still not being able to rest because theater kids keep singing "My Shot" near your tombstone. Brutal. Ghost hunters and spooky enthusiasts love Trinity because it checks every haunted box. Ancient tombstones, tragic deaths, colonial battles, mysterious energy. Oh, and a literal underground tunnel to St. Paul's Chapel, aka the Spooky Express. St. Paul's, by the way, has its own rumors. After 9/11, it miraculously survived even though nearby buildings were destroyed, making some people wonder if a divine or spectral force was protecting it, or just a particularly stubborn colonial ghost who refused to leave. Now, why is Trinity specifically haunted, you ask? For one, grave overcrowding was a real issue. Back in the 1800s, bodies were packed into the ground like sardines in a can. Sometimes graves were dug up accidentally when trying to make space for new ones. Imagine being peacefully dead and suddenly finding your foot poking out next to some new guy named Jonathan. Then there's the Battle of New York during the Revolutionary War, when Trinity Church and much of Lower Manhattan caught fire. Flames, chaos, death, you know. Just your average Tuesday for the 1700s. Afterward, mass burials and hasty funerals were common, meaning many souls didn't get a proper send-off. If you think New Yorkers get cranky over subway delays, just imagine how they feel about rushed burials. Some spooky sightings include figures in colonial garb wandering the grounds, mysterious voices whispering in the dark, and the classic ghost move, shadowy figures vanishing into thin air just as you try to snap a photo. One especially juicy story talks about a woman in 18th century clothing seen pacing furiously near Hamilton's grave. Of course, not all spirits seem angry. Some are just confused, lost. Maybe they're trying to find the 4/5 train. Either way, many believe that Trinity's ghosts stick around because it's one of the oldest, uninterrupted pieces of New York real estate. Even ghosts know location is everything. Plus, Trinity Church is layered with history, tragedy, and rumor, a ghost's favorite cocktail. In the end, Trinity Church Cemetery is a reminder that New York City isn't just alive with people, it's buzzing with centuries of memories, heartaches, and yes, maybe a few angry colonial ghosts still fighting about taxes. So next time you're downtown, walk softly. You just might be photobombed by a spirit in a powdered wig who never learned how to take a casual selfie. Elmrest Children's Center, where the walls whisper, the floors creak with purpose, and the ghosts have impeccable timing. Sitting at 960 Salt Springs Road in Syracuse, New York, this institution boasts a history as rich as a triple-layer chocolate cake and just as layered. Our tale begins in 1835, when a group of churchwomen, armed with determination and likely some very stern bonnets, established the Syracuse Free School to educate children who were less fortunate. By 1841, their mission expanded to care for parentless or abandoned children languishing in the county poorhouse. With a modest sum of $427.38, they founded the Association for the Relief of Destitute Children, opening the Syracuse Orphans Asylum on May 10, 1845, to 10 boys and 5 girls. As the years rolled on, the institution relocated several times to accommodate its growing needs. In 1922, it settled on a 146-acre farm on Salt Springs Road, providing ample space for children to roam and, presumably, for ghosts to stretch their ethereal legs. Fast forward to the 1960s, when Elmrest shifted its focus to serve troubled youth, later expanding to cater to children with emotional, behavioral, and developmental challenges. Today, Elmrest offers a wide range of services, including residential treatment, education, respite care, and early education programs, impacting over 2,800 children annually. Now, about those ghosts. Employees at Elmrest report witnessing apparitions of young children late at night, hearing disembodied voices, and the unmistakable sound of children crying. It's as if the building has a built-in surround sound system for the supernatural. But fear not. These spectral residents seem more mischievous than malevolent. Think less poltergeist and more Casper the Friendly Ghost, if Casper had a penchant for late-night hide-and-seek. In fact, Elmrest embraces its haunted reputation with a sense of humor. Staff members have been known to name the ghosts and even leave out toys just in case their invisible friends want to play. It's like a paranormal play date. Despite, or perhaps because of, its haunted history, Elmrest continues to be a beacon of hope for children in need. Its dedicated staff work tirelessly to provide a safe and nurturing environment, proving that even the spookiest places can be filled with love and laughter. So, the next time you find yourself in Syracuse, consider taking a stroll past Elmrest Children's Center. You might just catch a glimpse of a ghostly game of tag, or at least feel the warmth of a place where history and heart go hand in hand. And remember, if a ghost offers you a high five, it's only polite to return the gesture. Just aim carefully. You wouldn't want to slap thin air. The Fire Island Lighthouse, a towering beacon of light, history, and, if local legends are to be believed, a hotspot for spectral shenanigans. Strap in for a tale that's part maritime marvel, part ghost story, and entirely illuminating. In 1826, the original Fire Island Lighthouse was constructed, a modest 74-foot octagonal tower made of Connecticut River blue split stone. Its primary role was to guide ships safely into New York Harbor, a task it performed with the enthusiasm of a nightlight in a foggy bathroom. However, sailors complained that the light was too dim, leading to its replacement in 1858 with a more imposing 168-foot tower, which still stands today. Enter Nathaniel Smith, a lighthouse keeper in the mid-1800s. During a particularly harsh winter, his daughter fell gravely ill. With no bridge connecting Fire Island to the mainland, and the lighthouse still under construction, it took doctors 3 days to arrive. Tragically, too late. Overcome with grief, Smith is said to have taken his own life in the lighthouse tower. Since then, visitors have reported hearing unexplained footsteps and moaning within the lighthouse. The tales don't end there. In 2022, a group of 7 paranormal investigators received permission to explore the lighthouse. They reported capturing video and photographic evidence of supposed paranormal activity, which was later published by Fire Island and Great South Bay News. Beyond Nathaniel Smith, the lighthouse is rumored to host other spirits. Some say it's haunted by a caretaker who oversaw the demolition of the original lighthouse and the construction of the current one. Others believe the ghosts of shipwreck victims linger, including that of author and women's rights advocate Margaret Fuller, who perished in a shipwreck near Fire Island in 1850. Despite, or perhaps because of, its haunted reputation, the Fire Island Lighthouse remains a popular destination. Visitors can climb its 182 steps for panoramic views and explore the keeper's quarters and lens building. The lighthouse is maintained by the Fire Island Lighthouse Preservation Society, which has worked diligently to preserve this historic structure. Whether you're a history buff, a paranormal enthusiast, or just someone looking for a good story, the Fire Island Lighthouse offers a unique blend of maritime history and ghostly lore. So, next time you find yourself on Long Island, consider a visit to this storied lighthouse. Who knows, you might just have a spectral encounter of your own. Mount Misery sounds like a place you'd expect to find in a Tim Burton movie. Dark forests, creepy legends, and the kind of fog that just screams, "Get out while you still can." Nestled in the heart of Huntington, Long Island, Mount Misery has lived up to its cheerful name for centuries. Even the Native Americans were like, yeah, hard pass, avoiding the area altogether because they believed it was cursed. Honestly, when a place has been tagged as evil before Europeans even unpacked their questionable fashion choices, you know it's bad news. Back in the colonial days, things didn't get any better. The soil was so bad that even stubborn settlers were like, you know what? Maybe farming rocks isn't the dream. Add in the dense, suffocating woods, and it wasn't long before people started whispering that Mount Misery was more than just bad luck. It was haunted. People claimed to hear screams echoing through the trees and to see strange lights darting between the branches. Not exactly the vibe you want when you're just trying to deliver bread to your neighbor. One of the most famous legends revolves around a mysterious mental asylum, supposedly built on the mountaintop in the 1700s. According to the lore, it didn't last long, because, surprise, it burned down in a glorious inferno. And here's the kicker. Some say it was torched by a patient, a girl named Mary, who either dabbled in witchcraft, telekinesis, or just had really bad luck with matches. Depending on who you ask, Mary now haunts the woods, appearing as a shadowy figure with burnt clothing, or sometimes just as a terrifying scream that freezes you mid-hike. You know it's serious when even the Girl Scouts start handing out holy water. Speaking of burning buildings, the legends don't stop there. Stories abound about a mysterious schoolhouse that also went up in flames, killing everyone inside. Locals claim that if you listen carefully, you can still hear the panicked cries of children on quiet nights, which is either terrifying or the world's worst background music for a romantic picnic. Then there's Sweet Hollow Road, which snakes along the bottom of Mount Misery like it's trying to escape. This place is its own horror show. Ghosts of murdered children, a phantom police officer who pulls people over and then disappears, and of course, the tragic legend of a woman named Mary. Yes, another Mary. It's basically a unionized ghost name around here. She's said to have either jumped or been pushed off the overpass. To this day, drivers report seeing her standing by the side of the road, hitchhiking with the desperate energy of someone who still hasn't figured out Uber. Another gem of Mount Misery lore, UFO sightings. Yep, because obviously this place wasn't weird enough. People have reported strange lights in the sky and bizarre buzzing sounds, leading some to believe that aliens might be using Mount Misery as a personal vacation spot. Honestly, if you were an alien and you had the whole galaxy to explore, wouldn't you choose the place named Mount Misery? It's practically begging for weird stuff to happen. And let's not forget the phantom black dogs. Because what's a haunted forest without a pack of spectral red-eyed hounds hunting you down? Witnesses have claimed to see these beasts stalking Sweet Hollow Road at night, always just out of reach, always watching. Personally, if I see a glowing-eyed hellhound in the woods, I'm setting a personal land speed record out of there. Despite all this, people keep going back to Mount Misery and Sweet Hollow Road. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's the deeply human desire to get spooked so badly that you make weird noises and lose your car keys simultaneously. Some brave souls even hold ghost tours, which, let's be honest, are either the best idea or the worst idea, depending on how attached you are to sleeping soundly ever again. In the end, Mount Misery has earned its spooky reputation the old-fashioned way, through centuries of bad vibes, creepy sightings, and a name that screams, don't even think about camping here. Whether it's ghost girls, phantom cops, hellhounds, or aliens dropping by for a nightcap, Mount Misery doesn't disappoint. It's like a paranormal, all-you-can-eat buffet. Just make sure you bring a flashlight, a good pair of running shoes, and maybe a priest. If you think New York City is only haunted by overpriced rent and subway rats the size of small dogs, think again. Tucked up in the Bronx is Vancland Park, a massive stretch of green space that's not just home to joggers, picnickers, and confused tourists. It's also a playground for the supernatural. And no, we're not talking about your Uncle Jerry after 2 beers at the family barbecue. First things first, this place is seriously old. We're talking about land that's seen Native American settlements, bloody battles from the Revolutionary War, and way too many colonial bad decisions. If there were ever a recipe for a ghost-infested stew, Vancland Park's history would be the main ingredient, served cold, obviously. like revenge. Legend has it that back during the Revolutionary War, things got extra ugly when soldiers reportedly hunted and killed about 40 Native Americans in the park. That's the kind of horrifying karma that even a full moon can't cleanse. Ever since, the land has been said to hum with strange noises, whispers from nowhere, and the very distinct feeling that you are absolutely being watched. It's basically like trying to eat a sandwich on the subway at rush hour, but spookier. The Van Cortlandt House Museum, inside the park, is a hotspot for paranormal activity. Witnesses claim doors slam shut on their own, whispers fill the halls, and best of all, or worst, depending on your bladder control, dolls are seen walking around. Yes, you heard that right. Walking dolls. If you were looking for a reason to never sleep again, there you go. Who needs Annabelle when you have Cynthia from the Bronx strolling through a historic mansion? Park rangers and visitors have also reported apparitions wandering around the woods. Some see colonial soldiers trudging around like they're late for a ghostly roll call, while others spot the sad, misty forms of the Native Americans wronged centuries ago. Imagine taking your dog out for a 7 a.m. walk, and Fido suddenly starts growling at thin air. Congratulations, you've just entered the ghost zone. Hope you brought holy water along with the poop bags. And then there's the Indian Field, a picturesque, peaceful-looking area where absolutely nothing peaceful happened. This is reportedly where the Native Americans were ambushed and killed. Today, many say they hear cries, feel cold spots, and on really bad days see shadowy figures darting between the trees. If that's not enough to cancel your morning jog, I don't know what is. Adding to the haunted fun, ghost hunters who've set up shop in the park have picked up disembodied voices on recorders. Some even say the ghosts talk back when you ask questions. Imagine trying to make small talk with a 200-year-old ghost. So, do you like TikTok? Oh, and let's not forget the runners who claim they've been tripped by invisible hands during races. Listen, if I'm going to come in last place at a 5K, I'm absolutely blaming it on the ghost army of Van Cortlandt Park. Sorry, coach, it wasn't me. It was Lieutenant Spectre and his invisible bayonet. Despite all the spooks, the park is still wildly popular. Whether it's because New Yorkers are just that tough, or because no amount of paranormal activity can compete with the promise of a good food truck near the entrance, Van Cortlandt Park continues to be a Bronx staple. Just maybe leave before sunset, unless you like long walks on the beach with ghost dolls. Alright, get ready because the story of Forom University is a wild ride of monks, mayhem, mayors, moguls, and more than a few mischievous ghosts. Forom University began humbly in 1841, founded by the Catholic Archbishop of New York, John Hughes. Back then, it was called St. John's College. Hughes had a dream to give young men a proper Catholic education without shipping them back to Europe. And let's be honest, boat rides back then weren't exactly carnival cruises. In 1846, the Jesuits took over running the school, and Jesuits, as you might know, are basically the Navy SEALs of the Catholic Church, smart, tough, and highly suspicious of shenanigans. The Jesuits helped Fordham grow, and with that growth came, well, a lot of buildings that definitely look haunted. In 1907, the school changed its name to Forom University, after the surrounding neighborhood. Fordham itself comes from Old English words meaning a ford by a hamlet. Yes, your prestigious degree is basically named after a little village by a puddle. Fordham was basically doomed to be haunted. It was built on land that had seen colonial battles, Native American settlements, and served as farmland for centuries. If you know anything about horror movies, you know this is like putting up a neon sign for ghosts. Vacancy. Free Wi-Fi. One of the creepiest spots on campus is Martyr's Court. Sounds cheerful, right? It's named after 3 Jesuits who were brutally martyred in Canada. Students and staff have reported hearing footsteps, seeing figures in dark robes and doors slamming for no reason. Keating Hall, the famous Gothic building you see in all the brochures, is basically Grand Central Station for the undead. The 4th floor was once used as a morgue during World War II when the university hosted soldiers. People have heard groans, footsteps, and even felt cold hands grab them in the hallways. Note, that's not a great way to make new friends. The Walsh Library and the Duane Library are both said to be haunted. In the Walsh Library, a student once encountered a woman in old-fashioned clothes who simply vanished. In Duane, multiple people have seen a man pacing the upper floors, muttering about overdue books. Library late fees can really haunt you, apparently. What haunted university would be complete without creepy underground tunnels? Fordham has them. built for utilities, secret priestly passages, or possibly ghost races, who knows. Students have dared each other for decades to sneak down there, and they often hear whispers, laughter, and the feeling of being followed. President Trump studied there for 2 years before transferring to UPenn. The well-known legendary Denzel Washington graduated from Fordham. Lana Del Rey, the queen of spooky vibes herself, studied at Fordham. Alan Alda, beloved for MASH*, also walked those hallowed and haunted halls. John O'Hara, one of America's great authors, graduated from Fordham too. It's basically a school full of talented, mildly haunted overachievers. One of the most famous ghost sightings is of a young girl who cries in Keating Hall. Nobody knows who she is, but some think she's connected to Fordham's Civil War-era history. They're said to be the ghost of a nun roaming Fordham's campus, particularly near the old dormitories. She's often seen peeking into rooms, making sure students are behaving. If that doesn't ruin your Tinder date, nothing will. Many Fordham students have had the unsettling experience of hearing their name called, only to turn around and see no one. Ghosts at Fordham apparently value polite introductions. One former student swears that during a late-night study session, chairs started moving around on their own. Either that, or Fordham's ghosts really want to rearrange furniture feng shui style. Rumor has it that Fordham has had several exorcisms over the years, usually done quietly to avoid, scaring tuition-paying parents. One famous case even involved a student acting strange after using a Ouija board in their dorm. Pro tip, never bring a Ouija board to a Jesuit school. Legend says the spirit of Archbishop John Hughes himself still roams the grounds, making sure things are running properly. Honestly, considering New York traffic and modern college students, he's probably furious. There's an old legend about a shadowy black dog that roams the campus late at night. Some say it's a demonic omen. Several dorms, including Queens Court and Tierney Hall, are notorious for poltergeist activity. Objects moving, lights flickering, and alarms going off without cause. Halloween is huge at Fordham. Students host ghost tours, seances, and haunted house experiences. But at Fordham, half the actors might actually be, real ghosts. Fordham has attracted real paranormal investigators. The TV show Ghost Hunters reportedly considered it, but Jesuits are famously tight-lipped about letting crews film inside, probably because they're busy negotiating ceasefires with the spirits. At Fordham, you're not just getting an education. You're getting a paranormal adventure. Between the ancient land, the Jesuit traditions, and the endless ghost stories, Fordham is truly in a class and haunting of its own. If you visit, be respectful, study hard, say hi to the ghostly librarians, and whatever you do, don't open any random underground doors, especially if you hear whispering from the other side. If you were looking for the creepiest island you couldn't buy a vacation home on, congratulations, you found Hart Island. Sitting quietly off the Bronx coast, this eerie stretch of land has a long, unsettling history. Think Alcatraz, but way less organized and with a lot more unmarked graves. About 1 million people are buried there. Yes, 1 million. And no, that's not a typo. If ghosts were a stock market, Hart Island would be booming. Originally, in the 19th century, Hart Island was just a boring little spot where people probably fished and yelled at seagulls. But then the Civil War rolled around, and the Union Army said, "Hey, this looks depressing enough, let's put a prison camp here." Soon, Confederate soldiers were being held captive on this desolate rock, dreaming of literally anywhere else. By the end of the war, around 235 soldiers had died on Hart Island, and they weren't alone for long. As if imprisoning soldiers wasn't enough bad juju, Hart Island then became the go-to spot for all the things nobody else wanted to deal with. It hosted a quarantine station, an insane asylum, a tuberculosis hospital, a reformatory for delinquent boys, and even a creepy old missile base. At this point, the only thing it didn't have was a Starbucks. Naturally, with all this sadness crammed onto one island, rumors of ghosts started swirling faster than tourists around Times Square. Most famously, Hart Island is home to one of the largest potter's fields in the world, a public burial site for the poor, the unclaimed, the unknown. Since 1869, inmates from Rikers Island have been digging mass graves here. It's like the worst summer camp job imaginable. Every year, thousands of bodies, from stillborn babies to homeless individuals, were stacked into trenches, each forgotten by the world above, but, according to some, not entirely gone. The ghosts of Hart Island, if you believe the tales, are not the friendly Casper types either. People claim to have seen shadowy figures wandering the beaches, hear muffled cries in the fog, and sometimes even feel a cold, invisible hand on their shoulder, which is way less comforting than you think when you're standing near a million graves and realize there's no Uber to get you out of there. One particularly juicy haunting story involves a crumbling old house that once stood on the island. Back in the late 1800s, people swore it was haunted by a pale woman in a long dress who could be seen weeping at the windows. Was she mourning her lost love, her lost home, or just furious because there were no decent brunch spots on Hart Island? We'll never know. Fast forward to today, and Hart Island remains mostly off limits. Technically, the city owns it, but even they treat it like that creepy attic nobody wants to clean. For decades, visiting was nearly impossible, unless you were burying a relative or an adventurous pigeon. In recent years, there have been efforts to open it up to the public, because nothing says perfect weekend outing like wandering a fog-choked island full of forgotten souls. Adding to the island's mystique is the fact that its records have often been spotty at best. Many bodies were buried without proper documentation. So, if you're a ghost looking for your final resting place, Hart Island is probably the spiritual equivalent of getting dropped off at the wrong bus stop, permanently. And because the universe has a twisted sense of humor, Hart Island also served as a Cold War missile base in the 1950s. That's right. In between mass burials, the US government decided, hey, you know what this haunted graveyard needs? Nuclear weapons? If ghosts weren't mad before, they were definitely rolling their spectral eyes at that decision. So today, Hart Island stands as one of the most morbidly fascinating places in America. It's a silent city of the dead, occasionally whispering back at those brave or foolish enough to visit. The perfect setting for a horror movie or maybe a really dark musical. West Side Ghoul story, anyone? In short, if you're planning a peaceful island getaway, maybe stick to the Hamptons. Because on Hart Island, the checkout time is forever. The Washington Square Park, a picturesque patch of greenery in the heart of Manhattan, where NYU students sip overpriced lattes, tourists snap selfies under the iconic arch, and dogs chase squirrels with reckless abandon. But beneath this serene surface lies a history so macabre it could make a horror novelist blush. Back in the late 18th century, New York City faced a dilemma: what to do with the increasing number of deceased paupers, criminals, and victims of epidemics. The solution? Purchase a plot of land in 1797 for $4,500 and designate it as a potter's field, a burial ground for the indigent and unidentified. Over the next few decades, especially during yellow fever outbreaks, this site became the final resting place for an estimated 20,000 souls. By 1825, the cemetery was closed, and the city began transforming the area. A year later, it was converted into a military parade ground, and by 1827, it officially became Washington Square Park. The bodies, however, were never exhumed. So next time you're enjoying a picnic there, remember, you're dining atop a mass grave. Bon appetit. Adding to the park's eerie ambiance is the Hangman's Elm, a towering English elm tree in the northwest corner. While urban legends suggest it was used for public executions, historical records indicate that the only documented execution in the vicinity was that of Rose Butler in 1820, who was hanged for arson, not from the tree, but from a gallows nearby. Speaking of Rose Butler, her story is particularly tragic. A young African-American woman, Rose was accused of setting fire to her employer's home. Despite questionable evidence, she was convicted and executed. Some say her restless spirit still lingers in the park, seeking justice or perhaps just someone to acknowledge her story. But Rose isn't the only spectral resident. Over the years, visitors have reported sightings of ghostly apparitions, mysterious shadows, and unexplained cold spots. Some believe these are the spirits of those buried beneath the park, disturbed by the constant foot traffic and oblivious sunbathers above. In 2009 and again in 2015, construction workers unearthed human remains and burial vaults during renovations. These discoveries served as grim reminders of the park's past and reignited tales of hauntings and paranormal activity. Adding a touch of whimsy to the park's ghostly lore is the tale of Fala, President Franklin D. Roosevelt's beloved Scottish Terrier. After FDR's death, Fala reportedly wandered the park, searching for his master. Some claim that on quiet nights you can still hear the faint pitter-patter of tiny paws and a distant bark echoing through the trees. Today, Washington Square Park is a vibrant hub of activity, from impromptu musical performances to intense chess matches. Yet beneath the laughter and melodies, the whispers of the past persist. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, the park's rich history and lingering legends make it a fascinating place to explore. So the next time you find yourself strolling through Washington Square Park, take a moment to reflect on its layered past. And if you feel a sudden chill or catch a glimpse of something, or someone, out of the corner of your eye, don't be too quick to dismiss it. After all, in a city as old and storied as New York, who knows what or who you might encounter. The Hotel des Artistes at 1 West 67th Street opened in 1917 as a cooperative studio building for artists and performers. The name Hotel des Artistes was chosen not because it was a hotel, but after a French art school the founders admired, and to circumvent city height limits by using the word hotel in the name. Novelist Fanny Hurst lived here as well, reportedly penning her bestseller Backstreet in one of the shadowy studios. By the 1920s, the block had earned a reputation as an artist's enclave, and Central Park Studios sprouted up on neighboring lots. Yet the hotel's glamorous life was marred by tragedy. In January 1929, the noted sculptor Emile Fuchs, who had made the penthouse his home, took his life with a revolver on his balcony after battling cancer. That same year, on December 10th, poet-publisher Harry Crosby and his mistress Josephine Roch were found dead in a Des Artistes apartment. Detectives ruled Crosby shot Josephine and then himself. These sensational events, front-paged in the New York Times, quickly wove into the building's lore, earning it a reputation as a place where creative fervor and human drama coexisted. Remarkably, the Hotel des Artistes remained an address for notable figures long after its wild years. In 1977, director Robert Wise chose it as the setting for Audrey Rose, a film about reincarnation, using the building's massive three-story apartments as the home of Anthony Hopkins' character. Famous New Yorkers, silent film idol Rudolph Valentino, painter Norman Rockwell, even Mayor John Lindsay have lived here at various times. Its glass-topped awning and canal-like windows made it a Manhattan icon. To this day, the hotel's style endures. Its Gothic crockets and gargoyles remain intact, and it still offers rare conveniences: a private restaurant called the Leopard, a gym, and older utilities that harken back to its origin as a self-contained artist's palace of sorts. Aside from its artistic pedigree, 1 West 67th is also famous in New York ghost lore. Haunted house walking tours of the Upper West Side routinely stop here, noting unexplained shadows and cold breezes in the hallways. The most famous legend centers on Rudolph Valentino. Residents and doormen say his spirit wanders the corridors. They report catching whiffs of Valentino's exotic 1920s cologne and even seeing a blur of a man in period clothes reflected in mirrors. These stories have become local folklore, perhaps fueled by the fact that Valentino really did live here in the 1920s, and they lend the handsome Gothic building an extra air of mystery. Another popular tale involves the long-departed novelist Fanny Hurst. After Hurst died in 1968, the owner of her old apartment complained that life seemed to imitate literature. Neighbors and even the Café des Artistes staff kept seating her at Hurst's favorite chair and introducing her as the woman who bought Fanny Hurst's flat. Some say Hurst's lively spirit still haunts the space where she lived and wrote. More ominous whispers point to the violent deaths themselves. Could the emotional weight of Fuchs's death or Crosby's murder have somehow stayed behind? It's easy to see why these stories stuck. The Des Artistes has the look of a grand old house in need of ghosts, and true to its history, it even found its way into a horror movie, as one preservation blog quipped. Appearing in Audrey Rose only made this haunted hotel even scarier. In the end, 1 West 67th remains memorable both for the real artists and celebrities who lived there and for the myths they left behind. The building's legacy, part Bohemian Club, part Gothic chateau, keeps all its tales alive for anyone who walks through its doors. Actor James Dean was a regular at the Café des Artistes, the famous restaurant located inside the Hotel des Artistes building. In the early 1950s, when Dean was a struggling young actor in New York, he lived just a short walk away and often hung around the hotel, using the cafe as a place to network, eat cheaply, and sometimes charm older artists and patrons. Some sources even say he spent so much time there that people assumed he lived at the hotel, though technically he rented small apartments elsewhere on the Upper West Side. There are legends that James Dean's ghost haunts the hotel, especially around the old Café des Artistes space, which today is the Leopard Restaurant. Staff and guests have reported seeing a young man in 1950s, clothing flickering in and out of view, often in the restaurant or near the lobby. Hearing phantom footsteps around the original entranceway when no one was there. Feeling a sudden rush of cold air near certain tables where Dean used to sit. Some people claim to have even smelled cigarette smoke or old leather, like Dean's famous jacket, in areas where smoking hasn't been allowed for decades. Our last stop of this wonderful journey is Skina Manor, which is a stone Victorian Gothic mansion that looks like it sprang from a fairy tale or a ghost story, built in 1872-1874 by New York State Supreme Court Judge Joseph H. Potter on land once owned by Philip Skina, the town's 18th century founder. The manor was originally christened Mountain Terrace. Potter spared no expense. By the late 19th century, the 3-story, 10-bedroom house with its Gothic turrets and stained glass windows was a Washington County showpiece. After Judge Potter, who died in 1902, the estate passed through various hands in the early 1900s. In 1946, retired state trooper Clayton Shear and his wife Pauline, a beauty salon owner, bought the mansion. The Shears immediately rebranded the place as Skina Manor, honoring Whitehall founder Philip Skene. They gave it a new purpose too. The first floor was converted into a bar and restaurant. Legend has it Clayton even discovered a coffin in the cellar containing Catherine Skene, Philip's long-dead wife, and moved it next to the bar as a publicity stunt. Whether or not the coffin tale is true, it certainly drew customers thirsty for history, and possibly a poltergeist cocktail. The facade of Skina Manor shows the steep gables and towers added by Potter. In 1946, the Shears turned the ground floor into a tavern and public room, exactly where some say Catherine Skene's restless spirit haunts the parlors. Under the Shears, and later owners such as the Dixons, Skina Manor ran as an inn and restaurant for decades. It was a local landmark. Diners sat under chandeliers in the old dining room, gazing out at the village below. In 1974, the house earned recognition on the National Register of Historic Places, listed as the Judge Joseph Potter House. However, business eventually slowed. By the early 1990s, the manor needed care. In 1995, a local nonprofit, Whitehall Skina Manor Preservation, Inc., stepped in and purchased it. Since then, scores of volunteers in leprechaun hats for St. Patrick's tea service and head-to-toe ghost hunter gear for spooky tours have been working to restore the place to its former beauty. Skina Manor operates as a museum and event site, open April-December. It offers free tours, a Victorian tea room, a gift shop, and special events. Even overnight, no spirited Scottish soldier or headless bride is reported here. But Skina Manor proudly carries its reputation as haunted. Local lore says the most famous specter is Catherine Skene, though Philip never actually lived in this house. As the story goes, when Catherine died, her grief-stricken husband kept her body in a coffin on the mountain so he could keep her close. Paranormal investigators pick up unexplained noises, cold spots, and odd EMF readings in the old ballroom. Despite all this, Skina Manor's ghost stories remain firmly in local legend. Well guys, that wraps up part 4 of our deep dive into the most haunted places in New York. It's truly been a pleasure being here, even though, if I'm being honest, I've been here so long that my wife has officially left me for the pool guy. Yep, she says he listens better and doesn't chase ghosts all night, but hey, that's the sacrifice we make for the job, right? Besides, I'm allergic to chlorine anyway. But honestly, I wouldn't trade this experience for anything. Between the creaky staircases, flickering lights, and ghostly whispers telling me to leave now, I've had an absolute blast. And I even made a new friend while I was here, none other than Spike Lee himself. Crazy, right? Turns out he's got a soft spot for ghost hunters. And after a long conversation, he offered me a role as the water boy in his next movie. Dreams do come true, people. It's been wild, getting locked in abandoned buildings, running from shadow figures, and questioning every life choice that led me to spending the night in a haunted lighthouse. But that's just a typical Tuesday now. I wouldn't have it any other way. New York's ghosts sure know how to put on a show. I can promise you one thing, I'll definitely be back for more spooky adventures one day. There are still so many haunted corners of New York I haven't explored yet. Plus, rumor has it there's a ghost cat that rides the subway, and honestly, I have to see that for myself. So don't think you've seen the last of me, I'll be back. EMF reader in one hand, and a slice of questionable pizza in the other. That said, I'm taking a little break, assuming the paranormal lets me, of course. I'm planning a week of naps, bad TV, and maybe even therapy if I keep hearing disembodied voices asking for coffee. It's been a long ride, and while my sanity's hanging on by a thread, my sense of humor is still intact barely. Thanks for hanging out with me through the chaos, the chills, and all the different types of ghosts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and maybe send me a care package, preferably with snacks. Until next time, stay spooky, my friends.